We'll call the Board of Public Works meeting of Monday, January 4th to order. Number 2, approval of minutes of December 14th. Motion by Mr. Fisher, second by Mr. Fire. Comments, questions, corrections? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. I see no citizens here, so. Did somebody say something? Oh, I'm sorry. Number 4, award quotation for 2021 concrete asphalt crushing presented by Chris Hawley, Street Superintendent. Chris.
Good evening, everybody, and Happy New Year, and may 2021 be better than 2020, healthier and a better year than 2020. Each year, the street department salvages our concrete and our asphalts from all of our projects, and then we stockpile it down in the Vine Avenue stockpiles, and we send it out for crushing bid. This year, we sent out 8 packets to previous people that have showed interest in bidding in our crushing contract, and we also advertised in the Marshfield News Herald. This year, we received 3 bids. We opened up bids on December 30th and received 3 bids, and they are as follows. Earth Incorporated bid on, and we'll crush both the asphalt and the concrete piles. Earth Incorporated came in at a total proposal of $66,075. PGA out of Weston came in at $66,500, and Bugard Trucking has total proposal was $68,145. With that, I recommend that the Board of Public Works award Earth Incorporated out of Arpin with a 2021 crushing and stockpiling of asphalt and concrete salvage materials.
I have a motion by Mr. Fire, second by a question of Mr. Fisher. Go ahead, Mr. Fisher.
I'm just curious, you said you do this every year?
Yes.
Yep. Are the same businesses always bidding for this, or do you get a lot of?
This year we had quite a few inquiries throughout the year, and we threw them on the list, and that's why we mailed them out to the contractors. And after we awarded the bids, we had another interested party. We take their name, number, and address down, and we'll send them a packet too. Tom had mentioned at our last department head meeting that we could possibly even put this out on the Quest site, so we will look at possibly putting that out on the Quest site next year for crushing. Just to let you guys know that when we crush these piles, they're used, the concrete is used for road base and the asphalt is used for our shouldering stuff. So
okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else? Chris or Dan or Tom, I know it's a good thing to do this, number one, because we're recycling. But I imagine there's some savings in there versus if we had to use some other material for road projects and so on. Do you have any idea what we save? And I didn't mean to put you on the spot here, but.
Geez, I think because we do purchase some product from Milestone Pits off the Stott Road, and don't quote me on this, but I want to say that price is about $8 a ton, and we charge, and maybe it's $16 a ton, and when we charge this out, it's less than half that what we charge out. So
okay, maybe you want to at a future meeting just to let us know what the figures are, because we are saving money too. I mean, we always have in the past, so it's a good thing.
And it's better than landfilling these things.
Absolutely.
Too, so.
Yep. Okay, any other questions? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chris. Review of parking restrictions on East 2nd Street from Maple Avenue to Cedar Avenue, presented by Tom Turchie, City Engineer. Tom.
I know this will, Mike and Tom will both appreciate this one. We had users at the community center that have requested time limits greater than the posted 90 minutes on East 2nd Street. Several changes have been made over for the parking situation on East 2nd between Maple Avenue and Cedar Avenue, including creating a one-way street and diagonal parking. One item that wasn't addressed in these changes was the interval for parking. The current administrative code allows for 90-minute parking, which can be problematic with the change of use of the community center, as many of the users visit this facility for more than 90 minutes at a time. The majority of the downtown parking lots allow for 3-hour parking to coincide with the typical users of the local businesses. I feel changing the time limit on this section of East Second Street to 3 hours would facilitate the majority of the public that is now utilizing the community center. Therefore, I recommend parking restrictions be amended as noted. 3-hour parking on the north side of East Second Street from Maple Avenue to Cedar Avenue, and no parking on the south side of East Second Street from Maple Avenue to Cedar Avenue. I further recommend that these changes be made to the administrative code for traffic and parking.
Motion by Mr. Fire. Second. Mr. Rosendich. Comments or questions? Mr. Fisher.
So I understand why this is. It sounds like there were some people from the community center that wanted this change. Is that how I'm understanding it?
Mhm.
Was there any communication with the consumers of the community center to see if 3 hours is adequate amount of time? Because I'm picturing, and maybe Mike can speak to this as well, because I know he spends a lot of time there as a senior. But I was wondering, I mean, is 3 hours even going to be adequate, or are they doing programming throughout the day?
Go ahead, Tom.
I kind of was looking to use some of the time limits that we have in our administrative code for traffic and parking. Our longest that we allow is 3 hours in the downtown area for our parking lots. We could create a new section to put 4 hours, or you could take it off completely. But I felt that you might end up getting people that maybe work in the building, possibly just parking there all day too, which then defeats kind of the purpose of having it immediately available for the customers that are using the building.
Mr. Fire. Oh, say it again, Mike, please.
I said, most people that are coming, they get there about, well, if they get there 12:30, 1 o'clock, they get a spot. And then if they have bingo, it's 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So 3 hours is plenty.
Mr. Fisher.
It's no secret I wasn't for this one way. But I'm fine with the change. I guess I would lean towards actually either not having a time limit, and I understand the reason why you did the 3 hours. You don't want people working there to have it, but if someone wants to enjoy the community center throughout the day and they are elderly, I don't know if I want them having to move their vehicle in theory just to be able to stay longer. And I understand, Mike, you're saying they get there at 12:30, 1 o'clock, but I just would rather be more lenient to the consumers because they obviously are using this for their enjoyment. So I'll support it, but I prefer we not do the 3 hours. If anything, do 4 or just have no limit. Thank you.
Mr. Bargander.
Thank you, Chair. This afternoon, I drove down there and spent some time looking over the streets and the parking situation. I guess I'm having somewhat of a problem with the 3 hour limit. The reason being is when we put in angle parking, we did it mostly to add more parking space, obviously, but also people with mobility issues that they could park much closer to the front door. And my concern is if the entire stretch across the front is all 3 hours, then 3 hours becomes 4 hours, and 4 hours is half of a day. I just would like some of those spaces in front to limit it. So people with mobility, there's more people that will be able to use it than just 1 or 2 people in a whole day. You know what I'm saying? And my idea was when I looked at it, I believe on the east side, when you first turn on to 2nd Street, East 2nd from Maple, there's like 4 spots before the driveway that goes into the library. And I don't know how much confusion this would cause, but if we designated those 4 or 5 spots to be 3 hours or no time limit at all, like Adam said, and then the parking nearest to the front door, limited that to keep that at the 90 minutes, which usually stretches to 2 hours anyway. I don't know how much enforcement actually they get down there, but That's my issue with it. I don't know if anybody else has got any input on this, but I'm just concerned that those front spots are going to be tied up one car for almost half a day. And that's my concern. I really don't like that all the spots would be 3 or 4 hours, whatever. Reading further here, it said that you were going to post no parking on the south side of the street. That south side of the street is already posted. Is that just a change in the code? Okay. So if anybody else has got any comments, feel free. Thank you.
Mr. Turchi.
All right, one of the things we did recently was we added two additional handicap parking spaces in the parking lot immediately adjacent that are accessible. The parking spots on 2nd Street are not accessible right now. And the handicap parking spaces that are in the parking lot immediately adjacent to the door are, for somebody that has a handicap parking sticker, there is no time limit. So somebody that has a mobility issue would have all-day parking if necessary on those locations.
Mr. Bargander.
Follow up. For Tom Turchi, is there any time limit on Cedar Street between 1st and 2nd and 3rd? Is there any time limit in there?
I'm going to have to look that up. I can't answer it for you off the top of my head.
Because, that might be something too that maybe on the east side of Cedar, you could post that as 3, if it's not posted already, post that at 3 hours and then it'd give them a little bit more long-term parking. Like I said before, I'm just really concerned about people parking, using those 5-6 spots right in front of the door, which, I think are truly needed for people with mobility issues. So thank you.
Mr. Rosendich.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there a problem with the amount of spaces? I mean, if it's 90, is 90 minutes the only concern right here? Or is it the amount of spaces too?
It was just the timeline that I heard.
So, I mean, I guess if we're doing 3 hours, I don't see a problem because there's a multiple spaces in there, correct?
Yes.
I mean, so all the constituents can still use it as much as they would like. I mean, if it's only 90 minutes was with the problem, I guess there's how many spaces there? 10, 12 spaces?
Plus there's 2 parking lots,
Right.
one on the north side, one on the south side of the
I mean, I think we're kind of overthinking it if we're going to be really just going beyond the 3 hours. Really, let's stay standard within the community.
Mr. Fire.
Anybody that has mobility will try to park in the parking lot anyway because there's no curb, no curbs. Anybody with a cane cannot do well with a curb because if they have a cane, they're not walking well. So I think 3 hours is about what you want. And most people that come there, if they play cards, they only play cards for 2 hours, so they're not going to be there past 2.5 hours anyway. So it's gonna.
My concern with this is similar to what Adam says. I understand what Mr. Rosendich and Mr. Fire have said, but not all people are gonna use those other spots. And I just would hate for somebody to get a ticket, especially an elderly person. 3 hours. I don't know. I would like to see 4 hours or something like that. So I'll be voting against it. Mr. Rosen.
Is there any information on tickets that have been given in that area for over 90 minutes?
Doesn't mean that they didn't. Mr. Bargander.
I know that area we've experimented a lot with, okay. And I guess I would support this if we did it on a 6-month trial basis and see if there is any complaints about people not having parking spots, people parking more than 3 hours. I would support it at that point, and I would make that amendment to the motion that you would do on a 6-month trial and revisit it, and if there's no problems, fully implement it.
Yeah, I have a motion to amend. Do I have a second? Okay, second by Mr. Fisher. Mr. Turchi.
As we were discussing, I took and opened up the parking restrictions map, and there is no time limit for parking on Cedar Avenue between 2nd Street and 1st Street, just so you're aware.
Mr. Fire.
I'm the president of the Marshfield Senior Center group, and I have a monthly meeting, and I haven't had any complaints about parking tickets. If there were parking tickets given out in front, I would know about it, because that'd be the first thing they would tell me. So I haven't heard any problems with any parking there at all. Even the 90-minute, I think that some people, I think they probably don't obey it, because if they're gonna be there for an hour, 2 hours, they're gonna take that risk at the 30 minutes, but I have never had any complaints on it. So I think that the 3 hours is fine. I think and I also think we're overthinking this just a little bit.
Mr. Turchi.
I do believe that the gentleman that does the parking regulation or enforcement is not actually enforcing during the winter months.
Right. Right. So that's a good point. Mr. Fisher.
You know, I appreciate I appreciate Alderman Fire's comments about overthinking it. But at the end of the day, I don't want a bunch of rules that are going to infringe on or make it uncomfortable for any elderly consumer who wants to use that building. So I'm purely looking at it as, how do we give more to our elderly consumers of that building? And I would think that others would want to do the same, because quite frankly, I think we owe them a lot. So to me, it's not about, I don't really care if it's 3 or 4 hours, more or less. I want to make this as inconvenient to them as possible. And
convenient.
I want to make it as convenient. Thank you. I'm getting annoyed, so I'm misspeaking. So I just, at this point, I will vote for the amendment to see how the 6-month process goes. But if we're not going to be open to trying to be as convenient as possible to the elderly who are using that facility, I'll be voting against anything further on this topic. Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Secretary, would you read the amendment, please?
Okay, the amendment was a motion. The amendment was a motion by Bargander, second by Fisher, to amend the previous motion to implement a 3-hour limit on a 6-month trial basis.
Okay, we're going to be voting on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. How about hands? Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's 4-1 in
Motion
favor.
carries.
Motion carries. Now we have the original motion.
As amended, yeah.
As amended, yes. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Recommended items for future agendas. Mr. Fisher.
I would love an update on where we're at. I know we had discussions about the city garage and possibly moving that. And I was just wondering if Dan or Chris or someone could give an update on if there's been any conversations about property and just where we are in that process.
Sure.
So, and no time frame. I guess in the next month or two, if you could put that on, I'd appreciate it.
You bet.
Anybody else? I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Rosendich, second by Mr. Bargander. Thank you. We are adjourned.